Watch this.
We don't usually cover presidential politics on the 208, but with the events over the last 2 weeks, we can't really ignore it. Especially when Idahoans who voted for President Biden to be on the ballot in the primary are now feeling a bit betrayed. So who can be on the ballot for president in Idaho? Our Secretary of State explains.
I'm taken aback big time by the fact that we are even addressing this today.
Explaining is something the Eagle mayor has to do after his classification of Eagle as a non-sanctuary city was then met with hateful graffiti.
It has a very pertinent connection to where I live, the history of the place, Boise area. There have to be people who know her.
Her, as in one of the early female mayoral candidates in Boise, who we're trying to read up on after her campaign pamphlet from 1933 was found in the pages of a thrifted book. The last few weeks have been an absolute journey in the world of American politics. A historic presidential debate that reshaped the entire race, an attempted assassination of the former president Donald Trump, and news on Sunday that President Joe Biden is dropping out of the race. In between all of that, by the way, former President Trump selected J.D. Vance as his running mate. So we know the ticket for the GOP quest to take back the Oval Office. The other side of the aisle has a direction, but there are questions about how it will all shake out in terms of who will actually be on the ballot for the Democrats. Vice President Kamala Harris seems to have the green light from the powers that be, including President Biden. But who will be her VP? That is, if she ends up as the final option for president on the Democratic ticket. This afternoon, the Idaho Democratic Party published a news release saying that the Idaho Democratic Party, their convention delegates, unanimously endorsed Kamala Harris. Idaho Democratic Party Chair Lauren Necochea says that there is full support from Idaho's 27 delegates to the DNC for Vice President Harris. But wait. We have seen questions from folks at home who argue that they never voted for or caucused for Harris. They wanted Joe Biden on the ticket. But with him stepping out of the race, do they simply not get a voice? It's a fair question, and some Republican leaders have taken the opportunity to call for legal challenges to the entire situation because they believe Biden should be on the ballot. Legal experts are questioning if there are any legal grounds to really file any action in a court of law. But to be clear, President Biden was never the official nominee, an important distinction. Still, Republicans like Idaho GOP Chair Dorothy Moon, they're pointing to practical problems. Reacting to the Biden dropout, the GOP Chair Moon wrote in a statement, quote, "This means that the Democratic Party will disregard the voice of the people and allow a small number of party elites to choose their nominee. What was the point of the primary election?" she asks. So, what to do? Well, we sat down with the man in charge of Idaho elections. That's the Secretary of State, Phil McGrain. He explains that his office is not really involved in this discussion because you need to remember presidential primary elections, or caucuses as Idaho had this year, they're party races, not state-run.
In the case of the caucuses that we held here, both the Republican caucus and the Democratic caucus, it was to nominate the preference of the state to the national conventions. Those are taking place here in the summer. Republicans just had theirs, Democrats is coming up. And it's at the national convention where the collective national party will decide who their nominee is and send that information back to the states.
I've heard questions to the effect of, well, Kamala Harris didn't appear on the caucus ballot in Idaho. Is she eligible to be on the presidential ballot if she is selected by the Democrats?
You know, it's interesting. It doesn't work. It's not a state-specific thing. Again, it's the presidency. And so it's always possible you could have a candidate that didn't appear on an Idaho ballot become the nominee for a party because they were the nominee of the other states that was selected, and that becomes who is reported to us. Our deadline here in Idaho is September 3rd to receive the nominations from the national parties. So we've got time with this change. It doesn't really impact our office very much or impact us as a state. It's also a neat opportunity to remind people that when you vote on November 5th, you're not actually voting for those candidates. You'll actually be voting on the electors. There will be 4 names of local people who are the electors for each of the presidential candidates. You're voting on them to show up to the Electoral College and cast their vote for the candidate of your choice. And so that's just an interesting twist. Substantively, doesn't really impact too many voters, but it is all part of the process that goes back to just the founding of our country and how we've been doing it since the very beginning.
Because it's a democracy, but it is a democratic republic.
Yes, yeah, we are electing representatives, and I think the Electoral College is an interesting thing. It always gets talked about around this time. I'm sure following the election we'll be talking about it again because it's this obscure thing, but a state like Idaho, where we're a smaller state, we don't have the population of a Texas, a Florida, California, or New York. All of that matters because this is how we have a voice, is we'll be sending 4 electors to cast the ballots for Idaho.
So in terms of process, going back to the presidential ballot in November, does your office, I guess, just wait for an official communication from the national DNC, say, here's our final selection, and it's, I mean, in terms of what you do, is it just kind of a, okay, we got it?
Yep, exactly. That's effectively what it is. It's very ministerial at this point. There will be filing forms. We've already been in communication with the RNC regarding them submitting their nomination paperwork. We'll be working with the DNC just the same to get their information in.
So the DNC in a few weeks, they will make their big decisions. We will find out what happens. I think the big question looms, what could possibly happen between now and Election Day to change this all again?
We're not a profiling community. We're not a racist community.
Last week, we told you about the city of Eagle finding itself in the middle of controversy after a city council decision on June 9th. The city council approved a resolution stating that the city of Eagle is a quote-unquote non-sanctuary city. In the following days, comments from residents online showed a mix of support and disappointment. And our Aspen Shumpert joins us in studio now for an update on this. Aspen, a lot of nuance, a lot of conversation here. What did you learn today, and did you hear from the mayor?
Yeah, Joe, conversations are continuing. We are still seeing reactions from the city's decision, and today that includes vandalism within city limits. Council came to its decision to be a non-sanctuary city following concerns on how tax money was being spent, and a video that circulated on social media in May. The video shows what is assumed to be undocumented people outside Fairview Plaza in Boise and a charter bus nearby. Mayor Brad Pike says the video may have influenced the resolution introduction. It was around the time the video was circling on social media that a resident went to council with the concern that undocumented people were coming into the community. The resolution passed June 9th, saying that Eagle is a non-sanctuary city, meaning no taxpayer dollars can go towards services for undocumented people.
I think concerns from the citizens as to what was going on with the, I will not say illegal immigration, but the potential for rumors of migrants coming into the community. They just didn't want any of their tax dollars going to illegal immigration from any nationality or any ethnic group.
Pike says that the resolution was more of a statement, not a city code or ordinance. Estefania Mondragon, executive director for Poder, says there are people, looks like my screen is scrolling for me. There are many people that work in Eagle as well as live in Eagle, and the message from the city of Eagle is harmful and sends a chilling effect.
What it does is sends the message, it sends a very xenophobic and racist message to our community that, you know, if you are brown, you are not welcome in the Eagle city limits.
Today, a few Eagle fences were vandalized on Floating Feather in Eagle between Eagle Road and Highway 55. Graffiti on the fence reads, "Californians suck," and "Eagle hates Mexicans."
You're always going to have controversy on both sides of the coin of anything that gets addressed, but I'm not going to speculate on if this is something that I think is correlated to the resolution 24-07. We've heard absolutely both sides of the situation here. I've received emails and text messages, one supporting the fact that we don't want our tax dollars going to anything illegal. And again, I want to stress the fact this is all about illegal activities and programs. This is not about the hardworking people that are here, migrants of a whole, that are doing it properly and going through the proper channels. If you're here illegally from any race, creed, or nationality, we want it done the right way.
So, Joe, Pike says vandalism is on the rise within Eagle City limits, but that this incident is out of the norm and something that they condemn. Now, Ada County sheriffs say they are investigating the incident but have no leads, and at this time are unsure if it was done by one person or a group of people. So if anyone knows anything about the vandalism, you can contact Ada County Dispatch at 208-377-6790. Joe.
Aspen Shumpert reporting for us here on the 208, and I am curious, Aspen, has that vandalism been cleaned off at this point?
Yeah, that's a good question. When we were out there earlier, there was actually a nearby resident that was spraying it down with water. Now, since then, right before this show, actually, the city PIO told me in collaboration with that resident, the HOA, and the city's Public Works Department, it has been completely cleared.
Okay, that's good news, but the investigation into this continues. Troubling graffiti. Aspen, thank you for your report. Appreciate it.
Well, just to let you know that now we are at 103. Okay, so it was 100 degrees at about 4 o'clock. We talked about, this heating can still continue 6:30 for this time of year. Okay, so yeah, it could still get hotter than this, but we have 103, which is pretty much right around the forecast high I mentioned yesterday, anywhere from 103 to 105, so we're up there. 103 for Mountain Home. You can see 97 for Twin Falls, so almost made it up to 100 degrees. Even in the mountains, temperatures are just above 90, with 91 for Stanley, and the same thing for Haley and Sun Valley at 91 degrees. And the smoke took the big news today, of course, part of it. And if you look up here around La Grande and Cascade, this is at 5:05, so just a few minutes ago, you could see even the darker smoke coming off the fires, which is typical right around the fire area. It doesn't stay together, but we do see some blue coming up here into northern portions of Idaho. As you take a look at that, there it is, fairly dark, but still red, even as it gets up into Montana, and basically as the smoke starts to spread out somewhat. So this is 7:20 tomorrow morning, and you can see Boise still affected by that. Yeah, still in the red area, and a good surge of smoke coming through tomorrow. As you get into Thursday, this is very early Thursday morning. We might get a little break, but still some smoke in the area as you get into Thursday as well. And of course, what else? Is smoke everywhere, right? And the problem with this kind of circumstances is the fact that we're going to be looking at the possibility of some thunderstorms in eastern Oregon, but even into the Southwest Valley. That's for tomorrow afternoon. And right now, we're up to 226. Okay, that's what puts us in this blue area here. A very unhealthful level, health alert for serious health effect possibilities. Yeah, it wasn't long. We were just teetering between moderate and orange just in the last day or so, and then all of a sudden it just popped right up there with some of those new fires and what was going along the freeway, especially late last night. So there's just only one level above that. We hope we don't reach it, but as we look at it, we just want to tell you to be very, very careful. Especially if you're sensitive to this, but even if not, you have to be careful in this area. So if you look around the northwest for tonight and the Southwest Valley, we're basically clear for this evening. Still moisture to our south will start to develop, causing some thunderstorms, and some of these thunderstorms could be rather strong for later tomorrow afternoon. We're going to keep that in mind. Look at some of these numbers as I just talk about those storms. Those storms could even have winds that could be gusting up to as much as 50 to 70 miles an hour, even some lightning. It's really a bad situation as far as fires are concerned. These are the temperatures as you look ahead for tomorrow. Most of these highs will be up around 103 degrees. And then in our 7-day forecast, just to show you rather briefly here, you can see those temperatures that are up there. And of course, we're coming to an end of those 100-degree temperatures. They're going to come down on Friday and into the weekend.
If you've been outside today, then you know that the air quality isn't great. In fact, it's terrible, and that's because we have fires burning in Idaho and Oregon, including the Durkee fire, which is the cause of a lot of the smoke you see in the air. Morgan Romero tells us the latest on the Durkee fire and other news and notes in today's 411.
It was not fun, but it was actually amazing how everybody just kind of pitched in and did what needed to be done.
I-84 is currently closed from Ontario to La Grande because of the Durkee fire. The fire, started by lightning, is nearly 240,000 acres and 0% contained. There are level 3 evacuations in place for Rye Valley, Huntington, the area south of Powder River, and Timber Canyon to the Snake River. People who are evacuated can go to the Red Cross shelter in Ontario at the Malheur County Fairgrounds, where they're handing out food and water. They're also housing livestock. 6 additional fires started last night on the east side of I-84 because of dry lightning. As of now, fire crews do not think any structures have been burned. Idaho Power cut power to about 540 customers in Huntington this morning due to safety concerns over that fire. They de-energized the power lines because the fire was getting close. Idaho Power did provide a generator to help critical city services. They don't know when the power will be restored. The Bench Lake fire continues to burn south of Stanley. So far, it's burned about 2,500 acres and is 23% contained. The fire is covering the beautiful Sawtooth Mountains in smoke and threatening the popular Redfish Lake Lodge, which evacuated last week. In North Idaho, the Texas fire burned nearly 1,600 acres. It's now 70% contained. All evacuations and road closures have been lifted. Fire crews are mopping up most of the area and are handling any lingering heat. And that's your 411 on the 208. I'm Morgan Romero.
A female mayor here in Boise. We didn't really see that until fairly recently. 2019, Mayor Lauren McLean became the first elected Boise mayor to be a woman. Imagine trying to run for that position, though, in the 1930s, where very few women worked, and the fight for women's rights was actively ongoing. It's this time frame and a new discovery that has one Boise man asking, who is this woman? This woman he's talking about after finding a card in a bookstore, well, from a thrift store. Hunter Funk has this great story.
You can find thousands of words in just one book.
I went to a thrift store like Youth Ranch or some such thing.
But it's these words that jumped off the page for Jack
Brought it
Puckett.
home, opened it up, it fell out, and I said, hey, my goodness, what's this? So I then was intrigued.
There is history in this card. It says,
Vote for Esther Marinholtz for mayor of Boise City, April 4th, 1933. The candidate who is honest, competent, and truly the friend of the worker.
a campaign card running as a mayoral candidate in 1933. But when you do a quick Google search, the city of Boise shows J.P. Pope was mayor from 1929 to February of 1933. Then, Ross Cady was appointed for 3 months, finishing the rest of the 1933 term in May, which would make sense for Esther Marinholtz to campaign in 1933, though the outcome was another male, J.J. McHugh, who was elected as Boise's mayor from 1933 to 1935. The city of Boise never saw a woman fill the role until 2003, 70 years after Marinholtz put her name in the running. Carolyn Turtling Payne was the first interim mayor in 2003, and in 2019, Lauren McLean became the first woman ever elected as mayor.
She was a profound...
Puckett believes Marinholtz is a trailblazer.
She obviously had the chutzpah and intelligence to go this. I just want to know more about her. She's so intriguing. This person actually had, in the day when everything was against her, everything in those days was so anti-woman in politics especially, but there were so many other things that stood against her, and this is Mayor of Boise.
Despite losing the election, Esther Marinholtz made an impact in other ways. In 1943, a report on the impact of the war on local food habits says an Esther Marinholtz was with the Division of Program Surveys with the Department of Agriculture and reported that on the West Coast, many people had no fresh meat at all for as much as 6 weeks, and they requested that meat be included in the rationed food. That aligns with an obituary saved from a local paper. It says Esther was born in December 1898 in Great Bend, Kansas. She was married and divorced, had 2 children, and ran for mayor of Boise in 1933. Later, she moved to D.C. and lobbied for a pension for her mother, was politically active, and got a job in the Department of Ag. It states that she died at 72 years old in Colorado and now rests at the Dry Creek Cemetery in Boise.
Because she...
Puckett still has questions, though, about who she was, hoping it'll bring inspiration to everyone in the Treasure Valley.
She really does represent what you would want as someone to emulate, somebody to look up to and realize that where I feel unworthy or where I feel hesitant, she blew through it.
And Puckett wants to know if there is family still in the area that could explain her history. He also has daughters, of course, so that's a big thing, is where he wants to talk about, hey, this is a great story. Here's your piece of inspiration to his kids.
History is written by the winners, but that doesn't mean that the others didn't have impactful stories. If you know this person or what happened, I'd love to learn about Esther Marinholtz.
Yeah, really. She seems to have a good story. Again, a candidate, but would be really cool to hear from her.
All right, Hunter Funk, appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon. So, Idaho. Okay, we are close to the Olympic opening ceremonies on Friday. You can't spell Paris, my last name, without Paris, the city in France. All week, we're bringing Paris to you, including preschool kids at Suntree Language Academy in Boise who taught me a little bit of French for the upcoming Paris Olympics.
All right, so if I'm learning French, what are some basic, easy words I can learn?
Oui, no, bonjour, au revoir.
Oui, no, bonjour, au revoir. What do those mean?
Yes, no, hello, bye.
How do I say goodbye?
Au revoir.
Au revoir. Am I getting that? Is that good?
Yeah.
Au revoir. Okay. Easy. This is easy.
It was in fact not easy, and you should check out the full video as I learned. You can go to the Instagram page right now and find that. The kids taught me a lot. Meanwhile, the Olympics run July 26th, which is Friday, through August 11th. You can watch them in town right here exclusively on KTVB. Tomorrow, join us for a Live After 5. We're going to gear up for Olympic coverage. For obvious reasons, the event is now inside at the Treefort Music Hall. In KTVB, though, we will be there with Olympic trivia and giveaways, and the French Cassettes will have a live performance. Then on Friday, the Olympics are jumping into Boise. Join us at Jump in downtown Boise for the Olympic kickoff celebration. The event starts at 5 at Jump with a lot of fun things to do and eat. Ceremonies kick off at 6:30. We'll be back with comments after this. All right, so that is the end of our half hour. I'll be completely transparent with you. We were having some issues with the Comment-Tron 7000. So just wanted to talk about a few things here to finish up the show. We can get to some of your comments another time. As Rick was talking about throughout the half hour, the air quality and the temperature outside is very, very unhealthy right now. That is a good thing to talk about, but let's get to your comments now. Good job, Kai and Justin and everybody in the back. This person said, I'd like to think that the Democratic Party, you know what, we'll get to these another time. We'll see you tomorrow. Can't rush them.